The special favor of Allah. Awliya Allah. The universe is the body and its soul. Awliya Allah.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nur Allah. Viewers of Madani Channel, welcome to our series of programs Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. And in these series of programs, we delve into the rich heritage that we have as Muslims. And I keep on saying this, that yes, we do have a rich heritage. A lot of people feel that as Muslims, we don't have that heritage, we don't have that history, we don't have them role models. Allah, we cannot be further wrong than that statement. Our history is full of role models. Our history is full of messages that have been passed down to generation so that we can learn from them. If we look at the lives of our pious predecessors, there's so much that we can learn. If we look at the lives of the companions of the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is so much that we can learn. And also, if we look at the life of the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is so much that we can learn. And so in this series of programs, we look at the events of yesterday so that we can make a change today, so that we can have a better tomorrow. Welcome to Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. Before we begin, as in every single program, we like to give you a blessing of reciting Durood Pak upon the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the reason why we give this is that we want you to become habitual in reciting Durood Pak. At the same time, we want you to become aware of the blessings, try and remember the blessings, try and pass these blessings on to others so that other people can also benefit. And I pray that that time comes that we all become habitual in reciting Durood Pak upon the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you want the nearness, if you want to be close to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of judgment, and without a doubt, who doesn't want that? Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. On that day where nobody will be there to help you. Your loved ones, they will be running around. Your spouses, your parents, your children, all those people that you sacrifice so much for will be of no help on that day. And the only person that can help us on that day is the final messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of the ways in getting closer to the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is by sending Durood Pak upon them. So let's make it part of our daily routine. Whether you're traveling, whatever you're doing, send Durood Pak upon the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And inshallah, who knows, that one extra Durood Pak that we recite today might make all the difference on the day of judgment. Viewers of Madani Channel, I mentioned earlier on that we're going to talk about one of our, in the series of programs, we talk about our pious predecessors. And today we're going to talk about a personality that when we talk about the prophets, we know the status of the Anbiya, we know the status of these people. But after them come all the rest of us, the human beings. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about the best amongst all the human beings. After the Anbiya, after the Rasul, after the prophets, the best person amongst all of mankind is none other than Sayyiduna Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. And today we're going to talk a little bit about his life. Now maybe again we hear this name mentioned, that this is a person that's mentioned. We may know that he was the Khalifa of Islam. We may know that he was one of the first Khalifas of Islam. We may know that he accepted Islam early, but what more do we know about his life? And again, there is so much that we can learn from their lives. And today we're going to start off by giving you a beautiful parable. Hopefully it'll be a faith refreshing parable, and maybe it's something that we can ponder over. It is stated that al-Mu'mineen, Sayyiduna Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu anha, who incidentally was the wife of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was also the daughter of Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu. And she stated that in the beginning of Islam, when the blessed number of companions rose to 38, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu, he requested permission from the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to preach the message openly. Allahu Akbar. I just want to pause here. At that time, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, "Oh Abu Bakr, we are now less in number. We are so few in number." But Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, he continued to the request, and finally the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam granted him permission to preach Islam. Muslims spread in the surrounding areas of the Masjid al-Haram, and everyone started to invite the family to Islam. The passion to invite people to Islam. It is stated that when Sayyiduna Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu stood up to invite people to Islam, the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting beside him. And when the non-believers of Makkah saw Muslims inviting people to embrace Islam openly, they became furious and they started beating the Muslims. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, was also beaten unconscious. And when the people of his tribe, they learnt about it, they came running and took him to his home. His father and the other people of Banu Taym were also very worried. They were constantly trying to revive him because he was unconscious at this time. He'd lost consciousness at this time. And so his tribespeople, they were worried about his state. And they were trying to revive him, try to, wake him up. Whatever they did at the time, they did that. And eventually he opened his eyes. And when Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he opened his eyes, what were the first words he said? Allahu Akbar. How is the beloved Rasul? How is the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Now, his tribe people at that time not all of them were Muslims. And when they saw this response from their tribesmen, they got up angrily and left the place. Now all of a sudden, that compassion that they had with them, that compassion that they had, they were caring and worried about him. Now when he said, how is the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? They left. When the mother of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, al-Khair, would ask him to eat something, he refused. He kept on asking the same question. How is the beloved Rasul? How is the beloved Rasul? How is the beloved Rasul? And he kept on asking this. And eventually she decided to go to Jamil and asked her that my son Abu Bakr is asking about his friend Muhammad bin Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How is he? She was asking, he said that my son is asking about the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How is he? And instead of replying to the question, she said, I'll come with you and I'll meet your son. And when they met the son, he asked the same question. How is the beloved Rasul? Allah Akbar. And when she replied that the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is quite safe and he is well, he then asked, where is he now? And she replied that he is a place called Darul Arqam. And he said, by Allah, Allahu Akbar, by Allah, I will not eat anything, I will not drink anything until I see that the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is okay. And when the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw his devotee, tears welled up in his eyes, and he stepped forward, embraced him, and showed immense love towards him. Having seen this, the Muslims also moved forward towards him. And when the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he became emotional. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu humbly said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may my mother and father be sacrificed for you. I'm okay. Only my face has been wounded a little. And maybe you've heard it many times. But every time I read it, I kind of trying to envisage the event that took place. That there he is, inviting people to Islam, and all of a sudden he's been hit, he's been, abused. He's beaten to the extent, not lightly beaten, not slapped, not kicked, but beaten unconsciously. He's beaten unconsciously. And now his own well-being is at risk, his own life is at risk. And you can imagine that when someone's beaten unconsciously, people don't stop, people continue. He could have achieved martyrdom, that he could have passed away that day, anything could have happened to him that day. And so when his tribe gathered to see the state that he was in, and they were worried about him, and they were trying to revive him because he was unconscious at that time, and eventually he regained consciousness. After regaining consciousness in that state, obviously still in pain, obviously because he's been beaten, and like he said afterwards, my face has been wounded a little bit. Even in that state, when he himself is facing personal physical pain, the words that came out of his mouth, how is the beloved? How is the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And when we say that Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu is the greatest person amongst all mankind, excluding the prophets. This statement is not easily made. You know, for him to achieve that status, you can see here that he was willing to sacrifice his life. And when he made that statement that may my mother and father be sacrificed for you, it wasn't lip service. It wasn't just coming off the tongue, you know, like people say things. You know, people say things out of trying to be humble or trying to be, he meant it. He meant it. And not just on this occasion, in many occasions, Sayyiduna Abu Bakr Siddiq, he was willing to sacrifice his life for the deen of Islam. And this is just one instance, and we might mention a few more. The sacrifices that they made throughout the whole life, so that the deen of Islam could be preserved and come to us. If it was not for those sacrifices, where would we be? And yet, what is our manner now that these great personalities that I'm talking about, we don't even know anything about them. Yeah, we've heard the name, it's a Muslim name, Abu Bakr. We've heard kids called Abu Bakr. We know people called Abu Bakr. We hear it in the Friday khutbah that the Imam Sahib mentions the name Abu Bakr. Who is this person? We don't know anything about him. But after the Anbiya, he is the greatest personality. Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-Hajj, ayat number 40, and undoubtedly, Allah Azza wa Jal will necessarily help him who will help his religion. Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us here that he will help the one who helps his religion. And Hakim al-Ummat Mufti Ahmad Yar Khan Naimi Rahmatullah Ta'ala said, to help the blessed saints, to serve the Nabi, to spread Islamic knowledge are all the help from the religion of Allah. Allahu Akbar. Therefore, my dear viewers of Madani Channel, with the intention of seeking pleasure from Allah, we should also develop this passion of propagating the deen of Islam. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us that alhamdulillah that we are born Muslims. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with the environment of Dawat Islami. Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with this environment that we get the opportunities to spread the deen of Islam, to work for the deen of Islam. Just now we were having a meeting and we were discussing the opening of more madrasas. And you know, the core point that was coming through in all of our discussion is that we're not here to make worldly profits. We're not here to have a big bank balance. We're here to provide a service to the deen of Islam. And so when we're talking about the cost, we said that as long as we cover our costs, and inshallah we will cover our costs because people will help us and people will notice. People will learn to read the Quran with the correct pronunciation. This is your Dawat Islami that are providing these services. And this is just one town here in the north that we're talking about. Up and down the country, all around the world, everywhere Dawat Islami is serving the deen. And I would request you to please come forward. Join the environment of Dawat Islami so that you can not only protect your iman, but also be part of that beautiful train, Allah, that beautiful train that is headed by Amir al-Sunnah, the founder of Dawat Islami. And that train, where is it taking us to? It's taking us to the blessed city of Medina. And from there, inshallah, it'll take us to paradise. So this is a golden opportunity for you. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, in Surah Muhammad, ayat number 7, O people who believe, if you help the religion of Allah, He will help you. Again, this mindset that we have, that if we start doing the work of deen, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Now, I'm not saying give up everything and do the work of deen without any financial worries or financial. Yes, we should be worried. But what has happened is in our lives, we've become so involved in materialistic things that we want the latest phone, we want the latest car, we want this, and we want all them things. And because we've got that focus on our minds, we're forgetting everything else. We're forgetting the true purpose in life. And the true purpose in life, why have we been created? Why have we been created? We have been born to die. We have been born to die, to prepare ourselves for that day that when we die. And to prepare ourselves, Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us the guidelines. The Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has given us the guidelines. The pious predecessors have guided us, instructed us, helped us. How we can achieve that goal of dying with Iman. Achieve that goal of dying in such a state that Allah Azza wa Jalla is pleased with us. Achieve that goal of dying in such a state that inshaAllah Azza wa Jalla, through the blessings and mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla, we become amongst those fortunate people that enter paradise without accountability. You know, it will not be on our stone that, you know, this person, he died with the biggest house in Manchester. This person died, he had the biggest business in London. This person died, he had the biggest bank balance in the world. That will not be your legacy as such. And people, how long will they remember you? And is our aim in life to be remembered by people? If our aim in life is to be remembered by people, then okay, carry on. But that's not our aim in life. And we need to be aware of this. And so these people, these great personalities that literally sacrifice their lives for the deen of Islam. And even today, there are people out there that are not just sacrificing an hour, not just sacrificing 2 hours, but sacrificing their lives for the deen of Islam. And I put before you the founder of Dawah Islami, Amir al-Sunnah, the founder of Dawah Islami. He's sacrificing his life for what? For what? Is he sacrificing his life for worldly gain? Alhamdulillah, people love him, people follow him, so he has that worldly fame, but that was not his intention. I know someone beautifully said once that if you run after dunya, if you run after this world, you'll never achieve it. But when you run after the akhirat, the dunya runs after you. And Amir al-Sunnah, the founder of Dawah Islami, he's not only running after the akhirat, but he's trying to get us to run after the akhirat as well. And in running after the akhirat, running towards the akhirat, trying to take us all towards the akhirat, what is happening? The world loves him. The world respects him. He is well known, people know him, but that was not his aim. Even today he says that I wish I could go out into the streets. I wish I could go and do Niki Kidat. I wish I could go and travel in the Madani Kafilas. I wish I could do these things, but now the situation is different. But this is what we need to have, this mindset. We're going to take a small break now. I realized I've gone further on than I should do. We're going to take a small break, inshallah. After the break, inshallah, when we come back, we'll continue with the topic of the day. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
The righteous servants of Allah have a unique method of calling towards righteousness. The Saint Hatim Asam Rahmatullah Alayh was invited by a wealthy person to partake in a meal in the latter's home. He responded, I will attend if you accept these 3 conditions of mine. I will sit wherever I wish, eat whatever I wish, and you must do as I say. The wealthy man agreed. Many people gathered to see the friend of Allah. When Hatim Asam Rahmatullah Alayh arrived, at the appointed time, he sat where people had taken their shoes off. When food was distributed, the Saint took a dry piece of bread out from his pouch and ate it. Once all had finished eating, he told the host to bring a stove and place a pan upon it. When said pan had become red hot due to the intense heat from the stove, he stood on it barefooted and said, I consumed a dry piece of bread today. Saying this, he stepped away and said, now those who were present, now you should all take turns in standing on this pan and give account for what you have just eaten. They were stunned to hear this and collectively replied, Your Eminence, we do not have the strength to bear this. Our feet cannot withstand the heat of this hot pan. As we are sinners and worldly people, the Saint explained, if you cannot stand on a hot pan heated in this world to give account for the bounty of a single meal, then how will you give account for the blessings of a lifetime on the day of judgment? He recited the final verse of Surah Al-Takasur, translation Kanzul Iman Sharif. Then indeed on that day you will definitely be questioned regarding the bounties of Allah. Hearing this, all in attendance were moved to tears. They all began to cry and repent from their sins. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. MashaAllah, viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching yesterday, today and tomorrow, in which we delve into our past. We learn something from yesterday so that we can make a change today, so that we can have a better tomorrow. And today we're talking about the great personality, the greatest person after the Anbiya, Sayyiduna Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, the companion of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first male to accept Islam. Many sacrifices were made in his life. He had a very high status in the court of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's narrated once that Sayyiduna Abu Osman radiallahu anhu, he narrates that the blessed companions, they asked the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, amongst the people, who do you love the most? And he replied, Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala, the daughter of Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. They again asked, who is from amongst the men? And he replied, the father of Aisha, i.e. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhu stated that I saw the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was standing with Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu. And in the meantime, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq came, and the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam stepped forward and shook hands with him and hugged him and then kissed him on his face. And he said to Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu, listen to this. He said, "Oh Abu al-Hasan, to me, Abu Bakr has the same status which I have in the court of Allah." Allahu Akbar. A beautiful incident I want to share with you. Well, I think it's beautiful anyway. I hope you think it's beautiful as well. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu anhu is narrated that the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that once said that one such person will enter paradise, and that all the dwellers of paradise will address him by saying loudly, "Welcome, marhaba, marhaba. Come here, come here." Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu then said, "Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will we also be able to see this person as well?" The beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Oh Abu Bakr, you are that dweller of paradise. You are that person." Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, such a fortunate person that after the blessed Anbiya, as I said before, he has been declared to be the most superior person amongst the people. Moreover, the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam also gave him the glad tidings of paradise. He has also enjoyed the privilege of being with the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam throughout his life. His greatness can be observed by the fact that even the skies, Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned his name with the name of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is narrated that Sayyidina Abu Huraira, that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that I was given the tour of the skies. Thus every sky I visited, I find my name written over there. And after my name, I also found the name of Abu Bakr written there as well. Therefore, we should also develop that love. You know, if you love someone, then what happens is in loving someone, you start loving what they love. In loving someone, you like liking what they like. In loving someone, you start hating what they hate. Whatever the likes are, whatever the dislikes are, become your likes and your dislikes. Those people that they like, you become to like them. Those people that they don't like, you don't like them. If you love that person. If we claim to love the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which should be our claim, because loving the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is part of our iman. We should love the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we claim to love the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we should love everything that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam loves. And this is why we talk about the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah, his adab, his etiquettes, everything that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, because he is the one that we love, he is the one that we follow. So we follow him in the Sunnah. We follow him in the adab, we follow him in all of these things, but we should also follow the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in loving those people that he loved. He loved all his companions. He said, "My companions are like stars. Follow them, follow any one of them, you will never go astray." But amongst all the companions, who did he love the most? He loved Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu the most. He loved the daughter of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, Sayyidina Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu anha the most. These people, what do we know about these people? We need to learn about these people. We need to also show love and respect to these people. In the Madani Muzakara, children were sending messages to Amir that my name is Abu Bakr. Allahu Akbar. People give their children this name. And again, there's a great message here that we should give our children the names of the great personalities of Islam. And think about this. Viewers of my channel, we're going to take a small break now, inshallah. We're going to go to the kalam of the day. Inshallah, when we come back, we'll continue with the topic of the day. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
बुला लो अपने दर पर अब तो गम खाना बदोशों को फिरे कब तक जलीलो ख्वार दर दर बेठिकाने से शबे फुरक़ान خلقت ڈھلے بر آئے ارماں یا رسول اللہ کرو تم مستاں کا اپنے مہمان یا رسول اللہ بلا لو اب تو قدموں میں میری جان یا رسول اللہ تنم فرسودہ جاں پارا ہجراں یا رسول اللہ دلم پژمردہ آوارہ سیاں یا رسول اللہ تنم فرسودہ جاں پارا ہجراں یا رسول اللہ تمہاری یاد کا غلبہ ہمیشہ دل پہ ہو تاری لگا دو عشق کی اپنے خدا را ایسی چنگاری اسی خواہش میں کٹ جائے میری عمر رواں ساری چوسوئے من گزر آری منے مسکین زناداری فدائے نقش نالینت کنم جان یا رسول اللہ فدائے نقش نالینت فدائے نقش نالینت کنم جان یا رسول اللہ تنم فرسودہ جاں پارا ہجراں یا رسول اللہ دلم پژمردہ آوارہ سیاں یا رسول اللہ تمہاری نعت سے ہی ہے کرم کا سلسلہ پہ ہم ہے خواہش وقت آخر جب نکلنے والا ہو یہ دم زباں پر جاری ہو نغمہ تیرا دل یہ کہے اس دم زے جام ہو بے تو مستم بزنجیرے تو دل بستم نمی گویم کہ من ہستم سخنداں یا رسول اللہ نمی گویم کہ من ہستم سخنداں یا رسول اللہ تنم فرسودہ جاں پارا ہجراں یا رسول اللہ دلم پژمردہ آوارہ سیاں یا رسول اللہ سیاہی دفتر اعمال کی ہوتی نہیں ہے کم عذاب قبر و محشر کا مجھے اب کھا رہا ہے غم، شرم ساری گناہوں پر ہے اور آنکھیں ہیں میری نم، ذکر خیش حیرانم، سیاہ شد روزے سیانم، پشیمانم پشیمانم پشیمان یا رسول اللہ، پشیمانم پشیمانم پشیمان یا رسول اللہ، تنم فرسودہ جا پارا سے ہجران یا رسول اللہ، دلم پژمردہ آوارہ سے سیاہ یا رسول اللہ، سرے محشر محمد پیش ہو جو در سیاہ کاراں، کہے بے ساختہ جو دیکھے رحمت بر گناہ گاراں، میری امید ہو تم اے شفائے درد بیماراں، چوبازوئے شفاعت را کشائی بر گناہ گاراں، مکن محروم جامیرا دراں یا رسول اللہ، مکن محروم جامیرا دراں یا رسول اللہ، تنم فرسودہ جا پارا سے ہجران یا رسول اللہ، دلم پژمردہ آوارہ سے سیاہ یا رسول اللہ۔
Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. MashaAllah, viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching yesterday, today and tomorrow. Today's program, we're talking about Sayyiduna Abu Bakr Siddiq, radiallahu anhu, the companion, the famous companion of the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the first Khalifa of Islam, the companion who traveled with the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to Medina. He was the traveler in the cave, the person who made so many sacrifices, one of the first men, the first person to accept Islam, the first male person to accept Islam. Many, many sacrifices were made. And also, he had, not only was he close to the Prophet of Allah, and he loved the Prophet of Allah, but throughout his whole life, his whole character was an epitome of someone that was looking out to help people. He was always there to help people, to care for people. And there's a beautiful event that took place in which Sayyiduna Bilal Habshi, the companion of the Prophet of Allah, the person who became the famous muezzin, the person who gave the azan, and he was a true believer and a pious slave of the Deen of Islam. There was a time where he was actually a slave, and his master would take him out into Makkah, into the scorching heat, and would place him there. And he would make him lie flat on his back, and he would place a big stone on his chest. And his master would ask him or tell him or shout at him to deny. deny the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Deny and worship our gods. Otherwise you will die in the same state. Sayyidina Bilal Habshi would only give the following reply. Ahad, Ahad. Allah is one. He has no partners. And one day, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he passed by the place where Sayyidina Bilal Habshi radiallahu anhu was being treated cruelly. And he rebuked Umayyah. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq said to him, do you not fear Allah while treating this poor person so cruelly? How long will you continue to do this? And he said, Abu Bakr, you have spoiled him. You have spoiled him by converting him to Islam. So now you bring him freedom as well. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq replied, I have a slave that's healthier than this person and stronger than Bilal. Give me Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu anhu in exchange for that slave. And that person agreed. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu bought Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu anhu in exchange for the slave and some money, and he freed him. And thereafter, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq freed 6 more slaves as well. The beautiful part here is been narrated that Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu bought Sayyidina Bilal Habshi for at the time which was 5 awqiyah, which is about 32 tola of gold. Those of you that know tola is about 11 grams of gold. And he said to the seller said to him, Abu Bakr, if you had struck a deal with me with only 1 awqiyah of gold, I would have sold him for that amount. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu replied that if you had demanded 100 awqiyah of gold, I would have even paid that. And I would definitely have bought and freed Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu anhu. He was willing to give how much? 100, approximately 600 tola of gold to free this person. Allahu Akbar. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq was such a kind person that he could not see that this believer in this difficulty. And so he sacrificed his wealth in the way of Islam. And this in itself is also, looking out and caring for people, worrying about people, caring about people's state and the financial state that they're in. It's something that we need to ponder over as well. And it's stated that on the occasion of Tabuk, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he commanded all the people to give financial donations. On that day, Sayyidina Hazrat Osman Ghani radiallahu anhu, he brought so much forward. On that day, Sayyidina Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu anhu brought so much forward. But on that day, a beautiful event took place. On that day, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, he brought everything, his entire wealth, and placed it at the feet of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said to him, seeing this great sacrifice made by his closest companion, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, have you left anything for your family? You brought everything here. What about your family? What about them? Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq humbly replied, I've left them at the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal and His Rasul. Allah basically said that Allah and His Rasul, Allah and the beloved Rasul, Allah and the final messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are sufficient for me and my family. This is all I want. Everything. Now saying this is easy. You're sitting at home now. You may be watching it on a PC tablet. You may be watching it on your phone. Everything that you've got. Think about it. Everything that you have got. All the wealth that you've got. All the materialistic things that you've got. All the food that you've got. All the things that you've holded at home. Everything that you've got. All the furniture, the cars, everything that you've got. Imagine giving everything like that in the way of Allah. Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu did this. And nowadays, when we are requested to spend in the way of Allah, how hard is it? When the Jummah happens and we open up our pockets and we try to get them coins. I've not been able to get rid of these coins this week. Yeah, I've got all these coins here that I can't get rid of. Okay, give them to the masjid, the coppers and the 5 pences that you can't get rid of. You're going to put them there. Okay, I'm not saying don't put them there as well. But why can we not spend in the way of Allah? Why can we not give things in the way of Allah? And I keep on saying this on Madani Channel, that money that you have got, Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you that money. You'll be questioned on the day of the Jummah, what did you do with the money that Allah gave you? What is your response going to be? I had the biggest koti back home. I had the biggest car, I had the biggest bank balance, I did this, I had the designer shoes, designer jackets, designer watch, top of the range phone, all these things. Okay, I'm not saying it's haram, What I'm saying to you is, will that benefit you in that dark and lonely grave? What have we spent in the way of Allah? We will be questioned about that, viewers of Madani Channel. We'll be asked about how did we spend in the way of Allah. Nowadays, people come and ask us for money and we're not interested. We're not interested. But alhamdulillah, there are still people out there that spend in the way of Allah. We need to look up to them and spend in the way of Allah, that money that you've got. And again, there's this mindset, we mentioned it so many times, Amir Sunnah, Nigrani Shura, so many Mubaliks on Madani Channel. I mentioned this before, that we have this mindset that if I spend in the way of Allah, then I've lost that money. You've never lost that money. You've never lost that money. You put it in a bank that will benefit you in such a way that you can never imagine. You put it in such a way, in a place that we are told that if you spend in the way of Allah, Allah will avert a calamity that's due to you. For example, if it is in my kismet, for example, that I'm going to have a puncture today, I'm going to have to spend money on the tire today, I'm going to have to put a new tire on £50, £60, or what, £100 or whatever it is, because I've had a blown tire out. If I spend in the way of Allah, then maybe that calamity that was going to come to me will be averted. Allah will not have that blowout. That tire will not blow out. I will save that £100. So by me spending £10 in the way of Allah Azza wa Jal, I may have saved £100. Now this is not me telling you that if you spend in the way of Allah Azza wa Jal, it will avert a calamity. This is the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam telling us that if we spend in the way of Allah, Allah will avert a calamity for us. And yet still, we find it hard. I again request all the people that are watching this program now, set up a standing order that every month £1, £2, £5, £10, whatever it is that you can give and spend in the way of Allah. And just think to yourself that that money that you set up a standing order for you, it will continue to develop the sadaqah for you. You'll be continuously rewarded for this. You know, just recently we had somebody here in the UK that had this beautiful mindset that they had a property that they wanted to give to Dawah Islami, but they didn't want just Dawah Islami to buy it, sell it and use that money elsewhere. They said that no, we'll put it in a trust that will continuously be rented. The trust will manage the property, but whatever rent comes in there will go to Dawah Islami, and that will become a form of sadaqah jari for them people. It's up to you. You know, when we leave this dunya, you know, we'll leave it in such a state that what will we have with us? Spend in the way of Allah. Donate in the way of Allah. Set up a standing order. Give things. People have so much wealth, so much property. What are you going to do with that? Give it. Give it away in the way of Allah. And inshallah, you will see the rewards. Inshallah. Viewers, we're going to take a small break now. I think we've got one small package and then we have a few minutes before the end of the program. Let's go to the final package of the day. Inshallah, when we come back, we'll give you a saying of Sayyiduna Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu, and hopefully we can reflect on that saying as well. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
The blessed life of our beloved Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam guides us in every walk of our life. The way of walking for a Muslim should also be distinctive. Keeping your shirt placket open, wearing a chain, striding heavily, and with the chest out are the styles of arrogant and foolish people. Muslims should walk in a manner that is moderate and decent. Following are some sunnahs and manners of walking. Number 1. If there is no obstruction, then walk at a medium pace aside on the path. Do not walk so fast that people stare at you, nor so slow that you appear to be ill. Number 2. Do not strut in arrogance with your shirt placket open, like an ill-mannered person, as it is the style of foolish and arrogant people. Instead, walk with your eyes lowered in a dignified manner. Sayyiduna Anas radiyallahu ta'ala an narrated, when the Holy Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam walked, he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam would look to be bent forward. Number 3. Avoid looking here and there unnecessarily while walking on the way and when crossing a road. Look in the direction from which vehicles are coming. If a vehicle is coming, do not run recklessly. Instead, stop there. It is likely to be safer. O our beloved Allah Almighty, grant us the enablement to walk at a medium pace without arrogance, in conformity with the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Grant us the enablement to walk aside on the path with dignity and our eyes lowered, without looking here and there. Ameen bijahin nabil ameen sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Sallu ala al-habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam.
Sallu ala al-habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. MashaAllah, viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching yesterday, today and tomorrow. And in today's program, we're talking about the great personality. Yes, the great personality is Sayyiduna Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. We talked a little bit about his character. We've literally just scratched the surface. There's so much that can be said about this great companion, about his servitude to Islam, about his bravery in Islam, about him spending in the way of Allah, about his love and affection for the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The way he also, when he became a Khalifa of Islam, how he led the Muslims at that crucial time where after the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam put a curtain between this world and the next world. And then at that time, it was such a crucial time in the history of Islam that without the strength and the firmness and the integrity that Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq had at that time to hold firm the deen of Islam, to hold the Muslims together. To those people that were now trying to bargain with Islam, now trying to find a way out of getting easiness, and he held firm at that time. And so this great personality is someone that we need to read up about. Great personality is someone that we need to become aware about. This great personality is something that we need to realize that even as a Khalifa, the short time that he had as the Khalifa of Islam, he achieved so much. People are in power nowadays for 10 years, 20 years. You know, certain parties are in power for so long, they achieve very little. And yet Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq achieved so much in such a short period of time as the Khalifa. And I'm going to leave you with one of his blessed sayings. He said that, it is stated that Sayyidina Rafi radiyallahu anhu said that I was present in the court of Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. I said to him that, Ya Abu Bakr Siddiq, please advise me. And he said twice, may Allah have mercy on you and grant you blessings. And then he said, offer the Fard Salah on time. Pay the Zakah happily. Observe the fasting of Ramadan. Perform the Hajj and never become a ruler. The companion said, Ya, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, nowadays the rulers are the best people of the Ummah. Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu replied, nowadays governance is easy. But I fear that in the future, due to the excess of victories, there will be many governments, and thus it is unlikely that incompetent rulers will emerge. On the day of judgment, the accountability of a ruler will be longer and he will suffer more torment, whereas non-ruler's accountability will be lesser and he will suffer a light torment. Because it is the ruler who inflicts more cruelty, and a cruel ruler breaks the promise that he gives to Allah Azza wa Jal. Amongst those rulers, some those who serve justice and pious bondsmen of Allah, and some, because of the cruelty, are driven away from the divine court by Allah. When any one of you seizes a neighbor's nanny goat or a camel, he becomes very happy that he has seized the neighbor's nanny goat or a camel, whereas Allah Azza wa Jal will punish them definitely. Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq talks to us about the future, that as a ruler you have a zimmedari. As a person nowadays, that if whatever our situation in our life is, that you know, our households, we are responsible for the people in our household. If you are a nigran, if you are a responsible person within the environment of Islam, you have this responsibility on you now. And because of that responsibility, you can be questioned more. So having this responsibility is not about all airs and graces and look, I'm this and I'm that. No. You should realize that whatever responsibility you have, this is the responsibility. This is a questionable responsibility. That you'll be questioned on the day of judgment. That did you fulfill your responsibility? Did you fulfill your responsibility as a father? Did you fulfill your responsibility as a mother? Did you fulfill your responsibility as a son, as a daughter, as a neighbor? Did you fulfill your responsibility as a zimmedar, as a nigran, etc., etc.? All of these responsibilities that have come upon you, you'll be questioned about them. And being questioned about these responsibilities, we need to be aware of what my responsibility is and try act upon them. Viewers of Madani Channel, you've been watching yesterday, today and tomorrow in today's program very, very briefly. Very, very briefly. I cannot say that I have given justice to this particular topic. We've scratched the surface. If that, we've looked at the surface of the topic. Please read into the life of the great companions. Read into the life of the four Khalifas of Islam. Read into the life of Sayyidina Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Read into the life of the seerah of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. viewers of Madani Channel, you've been watching yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Until the next time, keep watching Madani Channel. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
The special favor of Allah, Holy Allah. The universe is the body and its soul, Holy Allah.